Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us for an episode of our Career Conversations, where we talk with our Eisenberg alumni to give you an inside look into different career paths. My name is Lauren Casaselli-Abad. I'm an Assistant Director of Undergraduate Career Services here at Eisenberg. Today, we're joined by Michael Sullivan. Michael graduated from UMass Amherst in 2016, and he headed to New York City, where he spent the past 8 years working in marketing and advertising. Hello, Michael. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Lauren, so good to see you again.
So good to see you. Michael and I go way back, so it's nice to be chatting today and hearing what he's been up to since he graduated from Heisenberg.
We love it.
Great. So, Michael, I know as I mentioned in my introduction, you've had a really successful career in marketing and advertising, and we have a lot of students who are eager to understand kind of what different paths are available to them if they were to graduate from Eisenberg with a marketing degree. So, we've got a series of questions for you, and if you don't mind, I'm going to jump right in.
Let's go for it.
All right. So my first question for you, Michael, is if you were sitting at lunch at an industry conference, how would you introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would start off with my name, Michael Sullivan, and that I'm the head of social media at Equinox Fitness Clubs. Primarily, I do like to note that Equinox is located within New York City, LA, and other major markets within the US. UK and Canada. Depends on the audience. Sometimes I've spoken to people, specifically UMass students, who said, I've never heard of Equinox before, just because we don't have many locations in Massachusetts, about four. And so that kind of leads to just not understanding market share. So sometimes I add a little bit of a spiel about what we are, what we do, so that people have the full understanding and breadth of our brand.
Awesome. Thanks for that background. All right. So you mentioned you're the director or head of social media at Equinox. I'm curious if you could talk to us, about specifically what that role entails. What's the day-to-day look like for you in your position?
Absolutely. So when it comes to my role, I oversee all the social media communication specifically for our marketing department, externally to any of our members, but also anybody who is interacting with the brand at large. This varies across independent social media platforms, Instagram, TikTok, and it also expands over to paid media as well, which is running ads across Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And then there's also the influencer component as well. So I'm very involved with our influencer ambassadorship program, where we have influencers posting on behalf of our brand, creating content for us, and with the end goal of driving more memberships, more signups, and interactions with our brand. Uh,
Okay. Keep
Aside
going.
from that, I oversee our editorial calendar specifically for our social media pages. So overseeing the production of individual assets created for all of those individual platforms, and working on shoots, doing a lot of photography, doing a lot of video work, a lot of TikToks, no TikTok dances. So and there's a lot that goes into it, especially for a brand that has hundreds of thousands of followers.
Okay. So you oversee a lot of different aspects of social media.
Yes.
And is there like one particular aspect of your role that you really like or really enjoy doing?
I love the TikTok of it all because it's all a
Okay.
little bit like the Wild Wild West, in terms of, people go on the platform and it started off, I was like, oh, let's do dances. That was never our brand and never something that we would ever be able to do. So it was always like, hey, there's this new platform. People are going viral on here and having a lot of great success. But how does a luxury fitness club play into this role? And how do we as a brand who views ourselves much more in line with the luxury fashion houses of the world, the Gucci, the Pradas, the Jacquemus, more so than a fitness brand like Barry's or Planet Fitness. How do we
Okay.
show up in this space? How do we create content here that is something that people actually want to watch,
Mhm.
but also holding true to our brand values and the messages that we want to send out into the world?
Okay, very neat. All right. So, one of the reasons why we started having conversations with our alumni about their careers because, students really want to get a good sense of kind of, what are the different projects that I might be doing once I'm in a role, right? So, in your role in social media, I'm really curious if you could tell us about, 1 to 2 projects to give us a sense of really what it's like to work in social media and in particular at your organization.
Definitely. So I think I'll start off with my team is definitely lean and mean. We get a
Mhm.
lot done without many resources, and that is very much the name of the game in social media. I think while there's a lot of brands who are investing in saying, "Hey, we want to put millions of dollars into our social media, we're going to hire an entire team." We are currently not at that space, and
Mhm.
so that is very true for many social media managers. So we're kind of like a jack of all trades.
Okay.
I will say when I first started off in social media, community management and responding and engaging with fans of a brand or whatever you're working on at the time was a really key component of that. And writing a brand voice and how to correctly respond to people to one and drive engagement, but also solve any of the issues that they might be experiencing with your product, or just being a voice for them to kind of interact with and listen to, is so key, such a crucial component to where social media lives today. So one of my first projects I did when I came in was rewriting what the brand voice was on social media and
Okay.
how does that brand voice translate differently in the captions to the responses that we write online? How is
Okay.
it different on Instagram versus TikTok? What are the through lines that are the same about the brand there? What is always going to be true no matter what? But what is different on these individual platforms to encourage engagement? Separately from that, have a pretty extensive background in production as well, so creating the content. So
Sure.
we just for every year we do an event for the vernal and autumnal equinox, given our
Hmm.
namesake. And so what we did this year is we actually rented out a outdoor location in Los Angeles
Hmm.
for our members to come and celebrate the day. It was
Hmm.
a multi-million dollar home. I think it was on the market like for 40 mil,
Oh
and it was
my
located
gosh.
in
Okay.
Brentwood in the hills. It was super fancy outdoor pool that was like an infinity pool. And what we did is we held yoga classes there all day,
Okay.
with Pilates classes for members to come and enjoy. We had fresh pressed juices. We had celebs there. And like all these great photo opportunities. And so it was just a great way for members to say, "Oh, what's different about your brand? What is
Hmm.
something that you offer that's so different from everybody else?"
Hmm.
And so a big piece of that on social was how do I make this look like the coolest thing in the world for members to see?
Hmm.
And so when it comes to that, it was okay, I'm going to build a content plan involving a drone operator, a photographer, a videographer,
Okay.
and being able to create content individually for Instagram stories, TikTok,
Hmm.
Instagram. And a lot of this is now added into our paid ads and helps highlight us as kind of the thought leaders within the fitness and luxury space, get providing unparalleled experiences for members to indulge in, and also further confirming like, oh, this is why you pay so much for your membership. um
Okay.
no, we didn't talk about this earlier, but an Equinox membership can vary anywhere from 200 up to, I believe, $500 a
Mhm.
month. So people really do want to get their money's worth and have this
Mhm.
ultimate luxurious experience.
Okay. So you talked, I think, in specifically, you talked a little bit about how in social media you have to kind of work with production. And I assume, right, given that you're translating some of the content to different channels and then using it in different advertising spaces, you're definitely interacting with other departments within marketing at Equinox.
Yes.
Is that fair to say?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Where would you say kind of so like where would you say social media kind of like fits in with the overall, Department of Marketing at Equinox?
Yes, so I see it at the intersection of both brand marketing and creative. Um,
Okay.
so given that social media is arguably the first touch point many people have with a brand,
Hmm.
having strong creative principles is so key to your brand at the end of the day. So making sure
Hmm.
your brand looks and feels the same across the board, specifically on social and when it relates back to their in club experience, or when they see another ad within on digital signage on a bus,
Hmm.
something of that nature. That said, though, we also work so strong as a fitness brand. We have to work really strongly with our personal training and group fitness team,
Okay.
so making sure things as small as, I shot all these photos from this event. Like, this is my favorite photo. And they say, actually, they have bad form in this image. As a leader in the
Um,
space, we need to make sure that we're promoting good form when they're working out so that we are the most we're not the most intelligent, but the respected in the space, and we know what we're talking about.
Mhm.
So while I might not be the expert on form, I have team
Sure.
members who help me out with that.
Okay.
And they also help us with really important things as small as language,
Okay.
and making those small tweaks.
Okay, that's super helpful also to understand obviously how you're interacting with not only the larger marketing department, but also the other aspects of Equinox that are really in charge of the, supporting people that are coming to work out.
Exactly.
Awesome. All right. So our next question for you is what skills and habits do you think enable you to be successful in your current role?
Definitely. So I'd say tireless first.
Okay.
Do have to be ready to go. Social is going all hours of the day, no matter
Sure.
what's going on. We're a global brand at the end of the day, so something could
Mhm.
happen in London at 3 a.m. our time, and I'm responsible for that when it comes back later on in the morning when I wake up. So
Sure.
being able to hit the ground running is such an important piece of social. The other
Mhm.
piece is too now with these platforms, they across Instagram and TikTok, they want you posting maybe every day,
Okay.
specifically for creators, so like influencers within the space.
Mhm.
And so I think the best brands right now imitate creators in terms of creating content that is always on the go and always happening. So a post cannot just be, if I want to help Pilates at Equinox be more successful, it cannot just be I created one video about Pilates. It is, this is how we are going to talk about Pilates for the next 12 months this year, and this is what we're going to do to create content about that, because it's kind of like a hammer and a nail at the end of the day. How many times do you have to hit that to make sure it stays in place and resonates
Okay.
with people? I'm
Okay.
sure we've all seen ads so many times out within the space where we're like, oh, what's Bridgerton? I don't know anything about that. How many
Yeah.
times do you have to see that before you say, oh, I've seen that Bridgerton everywhere. I'm going to give it a try on Netflix.
Yeah. Yes. Good plug for the new episodes that just dropped too.
I don't even watch Bridgerton, so I don't even know where that came from. So clearly the marketing is not as effective for me.
Yeah, well, clearly it's effective for me. So there you go. That's great, Michael. I appreciate giving us that insight and very helpful to hear about that trait of being very tireless too. So before you went to Equinox, you've had some other experiences that I'm sure have really contributed to your success and just your wide marketing knowledge. And so I believe, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but you used to work at VaynerMedia and then you also worked at DDB,
Yes.
a large advertising agency for those that are unfamiliar. I'm just curious, how have those previous work experiences really shaped to, where you are today and how you got into your current position?
Definitely. So when I was at VaynerMedia, I worked on the TV and entertainment team. And so
Okay.
our specific projects were for USA Network and Sci-Fi Network. And so really creating content around a space that was, premium cable TV channels not having a lovely moment right now with the age of
Mhm.
streaming.
Sure.
They were also investing heavily into programming that would be successful on on-demand platforms like Netflix at the time. So a lot of that was always on, creating really cool experiences on social media. I worked on a pretty famous show called Mr. Robot, which featured Rami Malek.
Yes.
Show is very, very voice driven.
Yeah.
It's about hacking and computers and kind of it's a trippy like psychology based show. Um,
Yeah.
I know nothing about computers. I was lucky my MacBook turned on today, and I know nothing about hacking, so I really had to dive in and really like almost play a role within the show,
Sure.
because it's like we were playing characters on social media and like writing in the
Mm.
voice of characters on those shows. So that really built my writing chops to really
Okay.
divulge into that. I would say secondly too, when I was at DDB, I was across a lot of different clients, and I was an account manager and
Mhm.
up to an account supervisor at one point. And I was tasked with sometimes like, hey, this is what are our best practices for our clients like website. I know nothing about how to operate a website. And so a lot of it was I'm going to go on Google and learn everything as much as possible as I can right now to make it
Yeah.
sound like I know what I'm talking about. And then talking with our team's experts to make sure I can go and present to the client and say, hey, this is how we're going to optimize your homepage for SEO results.
Okay.
Trying to make myself sound the most intelligent there. And I believe faking it until you make it is actually a really good practice because you end
Yeah.
up being a genius at the end of it or expert
Okay.
within the space.
Yeah, okay, that's great. So, I know I hadn't told you I was going to ask you this question, but I'm curious, we have a lot of students that are interested in kind of breaking into advertising, and I know DDB is very well respected in the industry. Any advice that you would offer to students in particular with regards to kind of trying to get into an advertising agency?
Definitely. I think you have to be very interested in advertising. If
Yeah.
it means investing your personal time in advertising, as much as, oh, you know what? I enjoy reading a book. You know what? You're going to have to spend a little bit time reading Ad Week.
Yeah.
Follow and use your social medias
Mhm.
for your sake at the end of the day, and turn that into ways that you can easily digest it while you're on the go anytime, anywhere. So while you're keeping up with what Cindy did last night at Stackers, you swipe to the next story and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, actually, Friendly's ice cream just announced a new campaign to help save like their bankruptcy.
Yes.
Reading those news bits and learning about the industry and what's going in the space is really what's going to push you across like the next level. It's not going to be, I'm going into work and I'm going to learn about advertising in my 9 to 5. It has
Yeah.
to be personal interest at the end of the day because you're just not going to be successful in the long run in that regard.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Yeah, I know we definitely have a lot of students interested in advertising, so always very helpful to hear kind of, what you think helps people get into the industry. So thank you.
Absolutely.
So if you were talking to a student who's interested in social media or just marketing in general, what skills or experiences would you say are critical to develop as a student?
Yes. So I think social media is a weird place. It's a little
Sure.
different than advertising in the sense that everybody has social media and everybody has a thought and or opinion on social media. And so
Hmm.
it's definitely being tricky with the social media space. So I always encourage people to always stay up to date on what's new within the social worlds,
Okay.
understanding in the marketing world what brands are doing on social media that makes them different, and always having a list of brands that you look to and say, these are the brands that are doing social media well. I will
Okay.
tell you, make sure it's not the same brands that everybody else is saying.
Mm.
For example, I've been to one of a million marketing conferences. We all know Duolingo has a crazy TikTok page. It's
Mhm.
wild, it's fun, it's kooky. Everybody says that answer. Have
Okay.
personal answers about why you like them and get specific on them.
Okay.
And make sure you have a strong point of view about those little small characteristics about the brand, because that is really what's going to change it or move the needle and separate you at the end of the day. And it also helps show when you're interviewing, oh, my mind or my point of view is much larger than this specific industry. Because,
Okay.
I might work in fitness and I might work in luxury. I need
Yeah.
to be up to speed on what a footwear or clothing brand is doing on social, just to help emphasize our game as well, because there's always
Okay.
unique pieces that you can pull from other brands.
Okay, all right. Anything at UMass that you would say kind of shaped or prepared you for some of the experiences that you kind of have had in marketing and advertising?
Definitely. So I'll start off, make sure to find mentors within the university
Okay.
that are personally aligned with your interests. I've had many
Yeah.
professors I've been very close with. I still keep in contact to this day, sometimes on a weekly basis, talking to some
Okay.
of my professors from
Yeah.
UMass. I still
Great.
have
Okay.
great relationships with them via LinkedIn. I would
Yeah.
also say find mentors and people that you look up to who are a few years older than you. It's
Okay.
so useful when it comes to either class selection, internship selection, point of view, and helping up your game, because you're just learning from somebody who's experiencing steps that are just a few steps away from you. So Lauren was actually one of those people for me. Lauren was 2 years older than me. It was just a great opportunity to be able to learn from you and understand what you were doing in the world after you left UMass, because it was a great resource. I knew I could text you, hit you up with any of those questions.
Yeah.
Thirdly, I'm going to recommend on campus clubs and getting involved with the university in much larger ways. There are so many internships are tricky, and when you go into an internship, interview, they're going to say like, oh, what kind of experience you have. You
Mhm.
need to make sure that you have like this almost like a Swiss Army knife of saying
Mhm.
like, oh yeah, I worked like a cashier at this store at the mall. But then it's also, I was really involved with women in business at Eisenberg. I was
Sure.
involved with the marketing club. Being able to translate what your club at the school could relate back to an actual official position. So make
Yes.
most of it as well. We spend a lot of money to go to a university, and so I
Yeah.
understand, sometimes it's hard to wake up early. It's hard
Yeah.
to get involved with things, but like setting yourself up for success starts with booking your calendar and being
Yeah.
very involved in those ways, because you only have 4 years to maximize it. And as somebody who's now 8 years out of school, so 2 times of a lifetime out of that, yes, I count the days, yes, I count the wrinkles that come with that.
We all do.
You need to make sure that that time goes so fast.
Yeah. Okay, no, that's great. And I think one of the things that we often try to talk to students about is how to translate, what they've done in their clubs and experiences or some of the jobs into relevant skills and experiences that are really required of the job that they're talking about. How can they translate competencies that they've developed into what a job is looking for? So it's really great to hear you emphasize that as well.
Exactly.
All right, Michael. So we've come to our final question. Bear with me as I read this one to you. So, as career coaches, we commonly give advice based on the following quote: you must see your career or your vocational path as more of a journey with twists and turns rather than a straight line. I'm wondering, now that you have several years of experience, as you mentioned, you've been out of school for 8 years now, how do you interpret this message in this quote? How does it resonate with you?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting because it's definitely true. And
Okay.
it's going to be true for everybody in a lot of ways, because your career is not a straight line. You
Mhm.
could be an accounting major and go to your career in 3 years down the line and say, I absolutely hate this.
Mhm.
This isn't for me. How does that now translate back to where you want to put yourself? And so vocationally, how do I take the skills that I learned in accounting and translate it to the career I want to pursue? Do
Mhm.
I have to take a step back? Can I take a step forward? Is it just a lateral shift? I think in my career, I've had experiences where we've had bosses or managers end up either leaving the company, or there was layoffs, and now I'm reporting to somebody who may not understand my world, or I'm reporting to somebody who has really strong feelings about a specific form of what I do, whether it be like a form of social media. So at one point, I was reporting to a brand marketing manager who left the company, and then our creative director actually took over the oversight of my team. And so when you're a brand marketing person, it's going to be very focused on strategy. Creative
Sure.
person is going to be very focused on the look and feel.
Yeah.
I went into social at Equinox saying I don't have a backbone in creative whatsoever. I am so strategy based. I need a creative team to do all of this. It
Yeah.
has translated and changed now to where I'm producing the shoots, I'm providing
Yeah.
art direction, I am
Yeah.
providing copywriting oversight and working with teams to make sure that happens. And
Sure.
so a lot of that was to make myself excel in my career and stand out to my manager at that point in
Yeah.
time. I had to start developing those skills. So it
Okay.
is so much I go back to the Swiss Army knife example. Like the
Yeah.
best people are talented at multiple different things, understanding their strengths and weaknesses and what they have to brush up on to be able to better set up their career path for success.
Mhm.
And arguably, as any marketer, I would say you probably like the end goal, not always true for some people, but is
Sure.
to be chief marketing officer. The chief marketing officer oversees digital, brand marketing, creative, all
Mhm.
so many different forms of marketing. They
Yeah.
know all of those pieces, or they end up hiring people to assist them in their weak strengths and weaknesses. So it
Mhm.
is really about absorbing as much of that pathway as you can so that you can be an effective leader at the end of the day, and understanding what's strong for you, what's weak for you.
Awesome. That is so well said. Um, and we so appreciate the time that you've taken out of your very busy schedule to talk to us. I know our students are really going to appreciate getting to hear how, your experiences and path and marketing has really taken off after your time at Eisenberg. And so appreciate it. And such a pleasure to see you, Michael.
Likewise.
All right. Thanks, everyone.